Hey everyone, my name is KryptoCal and welcome to the next episode of FTB Skies. In between episodes, I didn't do too much, I just did a little bit of decorating around the base. But the main changes I made were over here with our big industrial building. I added this crossbeam here of these LED light panels, which I think looks really cool, especially with the dark oak bracer in the middle. And the other really cool thing is that door is from the AD Astra mod, and if you get close to it, I have it set up so that it automatically opens. Isn't that so cool? I can walk through, it's like a sliding door, and it is detecting how far away from the door I am, and it is gonna open and close the door when I get close, which is really cool. And the way that I had this set up is if I come down here a little bit, I can show you. This is the entity detector from Cyclic, and what I have this set to is to only detect when players are nearby, and only when one player is nearby, so just when I'm nearby. And I have it set to be a 9x9x9 cube all around. Yeah, so once I go out of range of the detector here, it'll turn off the redstone signal and close the door. So I just think it's a really cool little addition. But other than that, not much has changed over here. We are up to 112,000 yellow cake uranium because what has happened over here is all the pipes here are backlogged, so all of the uranium is now being stored up. So I think the plan for today is hopefully going to be that we set up the fission reactor. But I really don't have any idea of where I'm going to build this reactor or what I'm going to build around it. So while I'm thinking about that, I figure we might as well start checking off a few more quests. And I'm hoping that we can get all the way through the third line of quests here, because we should have everything that we need apart from a couple of little crafts here and there to get all the way to the end. Some of the main ones that we're missing are some of these recipes from Farmer's Delight, the gargantuan flux storage from Flux Networks. We also have to make 256 of the charged Certus quartz, which isn't going to be hard at all. And also in here we have to make 64 signalum. These ones we have already finished. And then finally we already visited Sky Village. We have to make an advanced machine frame, which are very easy for us at this point. And also 64 blaze cakes, which realistically aren't actually that complicated. The biggest problem that we're going to have potentially is we don't really have any eggs, I don't think. Yeah, we only have 10, so we're going to have to find a way to get a few more of these eggs. Looks like we're going to have to just get some chickens and have them lay the eggs naturally. And we do have a chicken spawner already right here, so that might be something that we could already do. And realistically, we don't actually need that many, so I think this will definitely be a temporary setup. And I think I'll grab a couple of these monster balls from Cyclic. They're pretty cheap. They take some ice, gold, vines, and these effectively act as ways that we can grab the mobs. So if I come down here and place down our chicken spawner with a lever, fully maxed out, and we can throw this monster ball and grab the chickens this way. It's like we're catching Pokemon or something. And 1, 2, and 3. Got them. And place them in where we want them. So we'll get a few chickens in here so that they can start laying eggs a little faster. And hopefully we should start seeing plenty of eggs in here before we know it. There we go. We have a bunch of chickens in here, probably about 20 or so, and they are all waiting to lay their eggs, and we hopefully will start seeing plenty of them in the barrel right here. In the meantime, let's go ahead and get the other things done that we need to do. So for example, we have to do this charged Certus quartz. So to get the charged Certus quartz, all we have to do is put a normal Certus quartz through a charger, and that should be pretty straightforward. I think we should have plenty of Certus at this point. So temporarily down here, I just set up a charger right here, which I don't think can be upgraded at all, so we're just gonna have to kind of wait it out. But if we put all 4 of these Certus quartz in here, they should start to come into the charger and come out the other side as charged Certus quartz. So we'll just let that go in the background, and very soon we should have all the Certus quartz that we need. The other temporary setup that we need is just something to cook the stuffed Hoglin and Ratatouille with. There's some other recipes further down the quest line here that require some Farmer's Delight. So maybe it wouldn't be a terrible idea to set up a Farmer's Delight setup somewhere a little more permanent, just so that we can leave it out and use it whenever we want. Maybe we can put it over here by the crops. Maybe just tucked in the corner here. That wouldn't be a terrible idea. If I place this down here and then the cooking pot on top, yeah, we get this multi-block look here, and we can do all of our cooking right in here. Maybe we can even get a cutting board in case we need to get any cutting recipes done here. We can just put it down like so, and we can come in here and use our knife. So to make the stuffed Hoglin, we shouldn't have to do too much. We need to make a raw stuffed Hoglin, which is going to be the hardest part. That'll be the more complicated craft. And it looks like I need some ham, another salad, and some of these crimson roots and the warped roots, which actually I think should be pretty easy. If we get a little bit of netherrack out, and then also get some of the spores that we've had from before. Yeah, the crimson and warped nylium spores. Yeah, we can convert all of these into the warped nylium. I know you can use bone meal to... You can use bone meal once you already have one to further spread it, but we have plenty of these spores, so I don't really mind. There we go, we have a 5x5 of each, and now it should be as simple as grabbing some bone meal out of here and just right-clicking in the middle, and that'll give us a bunch of plants. Alright, so we have over 30 of each of these and a ton of the roots, so that should be good to go. Yeah, I got this Hoglin spawner somehow. I think it was from one of the nether villages, had a Hoglin spawner in it, so that's going to be pretty easy to get going now. All we have to do is grab our knife, which I think the knife in here had sharpness, so that might make it a little bit easier. Let's see if we can get this guy down with our knife. And there we go. And that is one piece of ham. We just need to get 2 of them. There we go. And let's just take out the other guy too while we're at it. All right, so to make this, we just need to craft a stuffed hoglin, which is going to be easy. We need another salad. And now we can go ahead and craft this. And the rest of this should be pretty straightforward. If we just dump this inside of our cooking pot, that should start to, yep, there we go. It's cooking up into the stuffed hoglin. Similarly, we have to do the ratatouille, which involves us having a tomato, an onion, a beetroot, and then one other vegetable. I'll get a couple of the wild onions maybe. Let's also get some tomato seeds, and then finally just a beetroot. Oh, by bone mealing the wild onion, you get flowers showing up around, which is kind of interesting. So we need 1 tomato, we need a beetroot, we get an onion, and then I think if we have some potato or something, maybe carrot. Yeah, we have some carrots. That'll do. Onion and a carrot. And there we go, we're crafting it up. And here's our ratatouille. And now we have to make the gargantuan flux storage from the flux networks. We do have to set a recipe for the flux blocks and the dust, but that can be done in the metallurgic infuser, so that's going to be pretty simple. Yeah, if we just set a recipe for the flux dust like this, all we have to do is say 1 obsidian dust is 1 flux, and we'll put it in the redstone infuser. Other than that, we can teach it how to craft the flux core, and then also the flux block. Perfect, so that is going to require us quite a bit of resources here, a lot of the obsidian, but other than that, it's pretty simple. While that's crafting up, how are we doing over here? Oh, it's all done, perfect. So we can actually go ahead and take down the charge setup. We don't really need it anymore, so we'll go ahead and put it away for now. And we can go ahead and submit the charged Certus quartz, just like that. And we have 32 eggs out of the 64 that we're going to need to craft the blaze cakes. Let's also go ahead and craft the signalum. Now, I did add a recipe for signalum. It's pretty straightforward. I can go ahead and use this recipe down here, and we can basically just make it by using silver and dust. I'm not sure why we're so laggy on that page. We can ask for 64, and that should pretty much instantly complete. Yeah, there we go. 64 signalum, ready to go, and we'll go ahead and submit that. So this whole quest line is actually done once we finish the gargantuan storage. But anyway, we can go ahead and also craft up the blaze cakes very soon. We have to craft these basic blaze cake bases, and then once we have those, we have to fill them with some lava to turn them into the blaze cakes. Now we might set up a basin setup over in the warehouse at some point if we have need of it. So just hooking into the power over here, we can throw a basin underneath. Now we have to get some of the cinder flour from Create also. Crushed netherrack going through the crushing wheels is actually what gets us the cinder flour. So what we can actually go ahead and do is probably grab a little bit of the crushed netherrack out of here. We only need a 64 of it, so that should be enough. And if we come upstairs here, I have already gone ahead and set up a little space for where we can add in our crushing wheels. Now, we already have made the crushing wheels in the past, so all we have to do is just throw these on here, and now we have 2 crushing wheels ready to go. And this is a very, very simple setup, nothing super fancy. Oh, I'm actually dumb. I have this one block forward. I was wondering why that wasn't working, but it wasn't it not working, it was me not working. And now hopefully this will start to work. That's sounding a little more promising, so we should see some cinder flour, which we do. All right, how are the chickens doing over here? Do we have... Oh, we have exactly what we need. Perfect. We have 64 eggs, which will be enough to turn into the blaze cakes. And all we should have to do is throw in the eggs, the cinder flour, and the sugar. And that is starting to do a lot of very loud compacting. Oh, it did the wrong recipe. Oh, it turned it into sugar cubes instead of into the proper recipe. So I think we have to do one at a time at first. There we go. We have the empty blaze cake. Now we can set the recipe for this, and then we can just throw in all of them after. And there we go. We have all 64 blaze cakes done, which means we can get rid of this setup just for now. And that should start to slowly fill up one at a time into the blaze cakes. And while the blaze cakes are being made here, the gargantuan flux storage has finished, which is perfect, which means we can go ahead and submit this quest, and this is basically done. As well as the second chapter here, so we can grab a free mending book, which is always nice, and it's done, perfect. So we can go and submit our blaze cakes just like that, grab our free resources, which is fantastic, and the big one that I'm excited about is this creative blaze cake. To show how this works, I'm going to come back to our setup behind here, where we have our blaze burners. Now the creative blaze cakes essentially let you toggle the states of these blaze burners. And I do actually need to make sure that these are the normal blaze burners, not the ones with the straw. And because we're going to be applying the creative blaze cakes, we actually don't need to provide these with lava anymore. So we can just send all the lava directly into our ender tank here. I'll keep this whole setup anyway, just because it's nice to have lava available. But because we don't actually need the lava in there anymore, we can just output right to the left into the ender tank. And then we can remove all of our cables in here because we don't need them anymore. And so we're going to need to make sure we grab the straws out of these, just grabbing them one at a time like this, placing them back in. And then if we take the creative blaze cake, we can right click and it'll now show that it is burning like this infinitely. It doesn't require any more fuel. These are just effectively just infinite blaze burners going like this, which is amazing. We can also right click them one more time, and now they are our superheated blaze burners infinitely. So yeah, really cool item, creative blaze cake, definitely worth getting your hands on. And we don't really need these chickens anymore, so my plan is to fit the fission reactor inside this space right here. And I also think it's going to be a little bit taller than this as well, because it is a relatively narrow footprint. So what I'm going to have to do to make this a little bit more efficient is to dig this down a little bit into the floor. And to fit the reactor into this area, I don't think we're going to get the full 256 millibuckets per tick that we were hoping for, but we'll get pretty close. And realistically, whether it's that or a little bit less, I'm not super concerned about. It'll just maybe take a little bit longer to get the 5 antimatter that we need. And I think I'd rather have it be a little smaller and just fit nicely into this area, rather than being way too big and be too bulky and take up a lot of space here. If we come in here to fission, we can see most of the stuff here that we're going to need to start crafting. First of all, we need the fission reactor casing, the fission reactor ports, which just take the exact same thing, but with an elite control circuit, the fission reactor logic adapters, which will help control some fail-safes in case of emergency, and then finally the fission fuel assembly. We also have to make some of the control rod assemblies, but not quite as many as the normal fuel rods. We're also going to want some reactor glass so that we can see inside of the reactor. You can replace most of the faces of the reactor with the glass instead of the casings, because the reactor glass can be a little nicer and it's usually a little bit cheaper because it doesn't take one of the steel casings, which takes all the steel and glass. This instead just takes one piece of glass, 4 lead ingots, and then some of the enriched iron, which is done in the metallurgic infuser. So we're probably going to need at least 2 or 3 stacks of the reactor glass. Let's get 256 just to be safe. That should be plenty for at least to start off with. And as for the casings, I'm going to go for maybe 2 stacks of these. 128 should be fine. The fuel rods are going to be what we need a lot of. The reactor can have a maximum size of 19, so we're effectively going to need 19 layers worth and 8 per layer. So let's start framing this out with the casings. So we're going to want to take the casings all the way up to the top, just like this, and bring it all the way down on this side. And this is where we're going to take our reactor glass now and fill in these spaces just like this, because we can fill in all the faces with glass instead of the casings. So because we have 9 blocks of the fission reactor above ground here, we have to dig this down by 10 blocks. So yeah, I'll go ahead and dig all this down and then we'll see how this all looks. Alright, so I pretty much finished the entire thing here, well, at least the outer frame. I've dug this down to where we need to, and there was no issues. We didn't have any issues with the island not having enough space, so that's perfect. But now this is when we have to start putting in the fuel rods. Let's go ahead and place these down in this checkerboard pattern, which is how we have to place them. And then we'll go ahead and grab our infinity wand and wand them all the way up to the top. And we should have just enough to get right up to this point, and then we have to use our control rods at the very top. All we have to do now is complete the casing in here with our glass. Now, this isn't formed as a multi-block quite yet because I do believe we have to add in the ports. So if we type in the fission reactor ports, we're going to need a few of these. Let's go ahead and grab 4 for now. So if I want to make a couple ports here, we're going to need 1 port for the fissile fuel input. So we'll place down 1 just like that. And then we also need to put 1 port in to output the nuclear waste, and we can shift right click to change it to output waste, just like that. And finally, we're also going to have to input water into the system. So we're going to want to keep it on an input. And there is also 1 more port we need, which is going to be the output of steam. And we're probably just going to end up trashing that. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is just take our glowstone. I might throw that up just right here. And we'll change this to the output coolant. And all we're going to do for that is to put a trash can, a fluid trash can right here. And I think that should be fine. So I was actually incorrect, unfortunately. The maximum size for a fission reactor is 18 blocks, not 19 blocks. So now the multi-block has effectively formed, and this is going to be our reactor that we can work with. So if we come into the stats side, we can see that our burn rate is now 120 instead of 128 because we lost those 8 fuel rods. So that's still going to be, I think, more than sufficient for what we're going to need. To supply the water, it's actually very simple. All we need to do is provide a sink. And this is where integrated dynamics is once again going to save the day. This is a fantastic mod for this task. All we have to do is come in here and grab a fluid importer. So we need to get a fluid interface. We need 1 fluid interface as well. So we'll keep 1 of those there and 1 fluid importer. So all we have to do for this is put a importer on the sink, the interface on the input port, and then 1 logic cable in between. Then we're going to come in here, place a variable card in the import all fluids, and this will start to fill this up with water at a relatively slow rate right now. So what we can go ahead to change that is come in here, hit the little plus button, go over to the fluid transfer rate, and we can make this as large as we want. So we can even go up to like 9999999, and that will basically effectively keep this full, regardless of what we're burning. So that's going to be really handy. For our input of fissile fuel, that's going to be also pretty straightforward. All we need is 1 of our entangler porters again. And as long as we have a pressurized tube here, that should hopefully fill this up with fissile fuel. Nice. So all we have to do now is take the nuclear waste that's going to be the byproduct, and we have to take that and process it into other items. So if we come in here and look at the nuclear waste, this needs to be then turned into plutonium using an isotropic centrifuge, or we can use the solar neutron activator to turn it into polonium. So there's plutonium and polonium, and we need both of those things. One more thing that might be a good idea to do before we turn this on is to set up a logic adapter as a bit of a failsafe, just in case something goes wrong. So if I break these 2 over here, let's go ahead and set these up as our logic adapters. So I'm actually going to add a couple more of these logic adapters right here, because there's going to be a couple conditions that we might want to send out in case of emergency. For example, we can send out a redstone signal if there's not enough fuel, if there's excess waste in the reactor, so it's not being processed, if the temperature is way too high for some reason. That way we can have all of these be fail safes, and it'll turn the reactor off in case it reaches any of these critical points. So in this case, it'll give off a redstone signal when the reactor reaches dangerous temperatures, which it hopefully will never get to, but in case it does, this will basically turn on this redstone link. And now basically what we want to configure this adapter to is to the activation. So it says activate the reactor when powered and deactivate when unpowered. That's actually not what we want. We want the opposite. So if we come in here and hit inverted, that means that when this gets a redstone signal, it'll turn the reactor off. Likewise, if we want to do this for the excess waste, it'll be the exact same thing. It'll output when the reactor has too much waste, or when the damage is critical, or when we have insufficient fuel. So there we go. That should basically take care of all the issues in case we do run into them, and that should hopefully turn our reactor off to prevent any damage. Now, I'm not going to set an output for this reactor port for the waste just yet. What I'm going to do is just let it build up in the fission reactor just for now. Obviously, I won't let it get to the point where it has way too much in here, but I'm going to just basically turn it on to make sure this all works first. And once we make sure that everything is working properly, then we can start worrying about where we're going to move the nuclear waste to. Because you really don't want to mess around with breaking nuclear waste pipes and stuff, because that will leak radiation into your world, and radiation is a huge pain in the butt. It does damage to you, it takes up a huge area around your base, and it takes forever to go away. Let's go ahead and set our burn rate here. Right now, it defaults to 0.1, just to make sure that it doesn't blow up when you first turn it on. We can probably go ahead and turn this to 10 just to start. And if I come in here and hit the activate button, we'll see that the reactor has turned on. And it has this noise here that is potentially a little annoying, but unfortunately there's not really a way I can mute this. I can't really mute the actual reactor itself, unfortunately. So I'm feeling confident we can take this all the way up to the max. 120 millibuckets per tick should be okay, but I'm going to go ahead and just make sure that we don't overshoot it. So I want to just maybe go up in stages. Let's go to 50 right now and see what happens. All right, let's go up to 80 now. So we are a little hotter now, but we still should be totally fine. There's no damage, and the heat isn't really in the danger area here. So I feel totally confident in putting this all the way up. Let's put this to 120, which is our maximum burn rate. But until I have the waste tank here sorted, I'm just going to go ahead and turn the reactor off. So after having the reactor running for a while here, I decided I was going to add a mod. I know, I'm adding mods to the mod pack. No, just a really small one. I just added the Muffler Mod. Just a very, very nice, easy to use mod that just allows you to selectively mute certain sounds. We can type in Mekanism Fission Reactor and just hit the muffle, and peace and quiet. I'm not sure why it wasn't in the pack to begin with, because some things just, need to be muted. I wish that it had like upgrades where you could add muffle upgrades and stuff right to the reactor, similar to how you would add the upgrades to other Mekanism machines. So the annoying thing about the nuclear waste here is that for the solar neutron activator to get polonium, this has to be accessible to the sky and have sunlight at all times to be working. So the problem is this won't work during the night. So we have to find a way to either, one, put this somewhere where there's always day, or two, keep it always day around here. And in some packs, there is a couple of dimensions that are considered to be always bright, like the ever bright dimension. So if you had one of those dimensions in your world, you would go ahead and set that up there because it's always daytime. You never have to worry about this not running. But we don't have access to any of those dimensions in this pack, so we have to find a way to keep it daytime around here as often as possible. Anyways, let's keep moving on to the solar neutron activator here. We already have the isotropic centrifuge, but to get the activator, we have to actually craft an HDPE sheet, which we get from the pellets, which can be obtained by crafting a piece of substrate in with liquid ethylene and oxygen in a PRC. What I think we're going to do is make use of a little bit of our ethylene right here. We're going to get a condensator out because we have to make it the liquid ethylene. We can craft up one of the condensators, and all we should have to do is place this down right here. All right, so that's creating liquid ethylene, which is exactly what we want, and we want the fluids to maybe output the bottom, where we are going to have our PRC. So if we place this down just like this, we should start getting the liquid ethylene, which we are. And now we need to get some oxygen, which I think we could probably grab from this one electrolytic separator here if we want to output the gas out the top. Again, all very temporary. So there we go. We have liquid ethylene and oxygen. All we should have to do now is grab some substrate out of here, and that effectively is going to start producing us the HDPE pellets. And I believe we only need 3 of these, because once we have 3, we could take them over to our enrichment chambers, and we can put it in the enrichment chamber, and that should create one of the sheets. And we only really needed the one, so I think I'm just going to let it maybe get us a couple more of the pellets, but after that we should be pretty much good to go. let's go ahead and craft our solar neutron activator. If we just auto craft everything else that we need, that should hopefully let us craft up. There we go. The solar neutron activator is done. So I think instead of trying to squeeze it into the building here, I might as well go ahead and make a separate building for this, because we're also going to have to get the SPS chamber at some point, which is going to take polonium to begin with. And once we have the SPS set up, we can basically feed the polonium directly into it, and that will produce us antimatter. So I'm going to go ahead and fiddle around with some designs for a building, and once we have something that I like, we'll come back and get it started. Okay, so I went ahead and did a little bit of designing, and I have a build that I am very happy with. So here is the material checklist for our build, and there is quite a bit of different materials we have to go about and gather. Some of the main ones that are going to be the toughest are probably going to be all of this elf glass. So how you get the elf glass is you just basically throw normal mana glass through the elven portal, and it has this really greenish tint, which is really, really nice. I love it. Other than that, there's nothing super out of the ordinary here, just a lot of dark oak again, because apparently I have a problem with dark oak in this series. So let's go ahead and gather all this up, and let's get building. Alright, all of our material gathering is now finished. It didn't take too long at all, actually. We had pretty much everything we already needed. So here's all the materials that we're going to need for this build, and let's get started with a time lapse. So my plan is to have the Neutron Activator and the Isotropic Centrifuge up at the top here, probably going to be in this top floor, and the middle area I'm going to reserve for our SPS once we have that up and running, because I believe that the Solar Neutron Activator can actually work through trapdoors, so we should be able to put it somewhere like here, and it will be able to have access to the sky. So I think for now what we're going to do is have it split evenly between the Isotropic Centrifuge and the Neutron Activator, but once we have enough of the plutonium, we should be able to fully convert this over to just 2 of these solar activators, because after we have enough plutonium, all we really need is the polonium. So anyway, let's go ahead and put these down. Let's go and put our solar activator right there and the centrifuge right over here. Now, unfortunately, because the nuclear waste here is radioactive, we can't actually send this remotely via our quantum entangleporters, so we're going to have to come up with a different solution for that. So interestingly enough, you can actually take our entangle binder, we can actually shift right click and select the output port, and we can actually entangle this to this block, which means that theoretically we should be able to extract the nuclear waste out of our entangled block anywhere else on our island. But let's go ahead and put that to the test then. So what we're going to do is basically place our entangled block somewhere around here, and then we're going to entangle it just like so. And it is bound to the fission port, and we can see that there is nuclear waste in here ready to be pulled out. Now I believe the centrifuge here does actually need some power, so we're going to probably give it some power like this. And then what we're going to want to do is just hook this in using some pressurized cable like this. Now all we have to do is make sure that this is on extract back here, and we have to be careful because once we start extracting out of here, this is going to be filled with the nuclear waste, and once we have that, we're going to have to make sure that we don't break any cables or anything, because then we're going to have a radiation spillage and that's going to be no fun. Let's go ahead and just take this, and that should start to work. And we have already 10 buckets of plutonium and 10 of polonium. So once we have the polonium and the plutonium, we have to send them into a pressurized reaction chamber with various materials. I think it's just the fluorite dust we need, and they're going to produce us the polonium pellets and the plutonium pellets. And these are what we need to use to make the SPS casings. So looking at the SPS here, we might actually need to also set up another setup for HDPE, because we used a little bit of it just to get a couple of pieces of the pellets, but it's probably going to be better to set up a more permanent solution. All right, so I've gathered a few materials here. We have our PRCs that we're going to need to start off. So let's go ahead and get these set up. So we're going to want to send these in with some water. So what I think we're going to do is just auto pump these out to each side. So we're going to have the polonium pump out to the right like this. So that should send the polonium straight in. And then likewise on the other side, we're going to have an output for the plutonium. And both of these just need some water and fluorite to start working. So here's what I'm thinking. We're going to have this set to the gray channel here. And this should hopefully be a separate unused ender chest channel, so we can make use of this. And we're going to have the fluorite pumped right into the ender chest from our system to keep stocked right here. Then what we're going to want to do is put this into a crusher, probably around here or something. And I could set this up for an autocraft, but I think it'll be easier just to do it on the spot here. Rather than trying to keep fluorite dust in stock, that'll probably be a little bit easier this way. So item importer, interface cable, logic cable. So we put this down right here, and we also want to give this the proper channel of triple gray. Then we're going to put the export bus here and set this to fluorite. And this should start to auto import, which it is. And up here we should see that we have fluorite already being crushed into the fluorite dust, which is perfect. This just needs to be given a little bit of power. So I think what we're going to do for power is probably just set up a modular router to configure and send power to all of these. So let's select all of our machines that need power. Place that inside, give it some energy upgrades and some speed upgrades. There we go. And that is working. All right, so we have the fluoride dust, which is great, but this might need to be a little bit faster. So let's go ahead and grab a couple of tier installers. All right, and after a few more minutes here, I have fully sped up our crushing factory here. So now we have plenty of fluoride dust coming in. Now all we have to do is get it inside of our PRC. Probably just going to use a couple of the universal pipes for this, because that's going to be the easiest. All right, so I think what we're going to do is have basically a universal cable on the sink here as well. And then we're just going to set the inputs on all of these. So that should supply, hopefully, water and also the dust to the back here. If I go ahead and set our item input on the back, there we go. We are producing the polonium. So the polonium pellets are being produced in here, which is great. And then we have plutonium coming in on this side. Yeah, the radioactive waste barrels, and these are pretty cheap. So I can go ahead and make a few of these, maybe just 4 of each for now. We'll put them over here at the back just to keep them out of the way. And then what we're going to want to do is just add some pressurized cable. We can take the bad nuclear waste out the left here. So now we can go and send it into all of these barrels. And then we're going to do the exact same thing on this side. And then we're going to set our item output to be the top. So now we have polonium pellets waiting for a spot in the drawer system. And then likewise over here, we can do the exact same thing. But now that we have all that taken care of, I think we can go ahead and maybe kick on our reactor and leave it running for a while. And it does sound like it is working, so that's good. Looks like we're getting 60 nuclear waste here, and then on this side we're getting 60 as well. So we're splitting it evenly, 60 and 60, which is not too bad. All right, so while that's going on, we have to go ahead and also set up a production for HDPE sheets. And the setup I'm going to use is very similar just to the ethylene setup we have for our power system down there, but just quite a bit smaller because we don't need nearly that much ethylene. Just need a little bit of passive production of HDPE sheets. So I'm not too worried about having a super fast setup. So then all we have to do here is connect this up, not hook this in like that, and make sure we have moss coming in to the crusher. All right, this is the jank setup here for it, but this I think should work. And we're creating the substrate, which is perfect, which should be auto forming into our HDPE pellets down here. It's not the prettiest, but it does get the job done. So now we're just going to go ahead and probably import these back into our system and store them. And now we just got to set a drawer for these, and we are all good to go. And we're up to 87 polonium pellets here, and also the 172 plutonium. So we're getting actually much more plutonium, it seems, than polonium, to the point where I'm actually tempted to go ahead and change all this over to polonium production. So what I might do is actually just make sure that this is fully empty. All Alright, so the centrifuge is fully drained here now. There's nothing inside, so we can go ahead and safely break this and put this away for now. And we're going to have to leave the solar neutron activator up for a little bit longer. It's doing now double speed, so this should be running quite quickly in here. Yeah, we're getting a ton of polonium coming in. But anyways, everyone, thank you very much for watching. I really hope you did enjoy. If you did, feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Also, be sure to join the Discord if you haven't already. The link is in the description down below. But that's it for me, everybody. I hope you all have a good one, and I will catch you all in the next episode. Bye!